I was there, the day Horus slew the Emperor. Myths grow like crystals, according to their own recurrent pattern, but there must be a suitable core to start their growth. The difference between gods and demons largely depends upon where one is standing at the time. Hello everybody, the Siege of Terra is over, and I thought I would play those lines. Those are actually the very first lines that you read in Horus Rising, the first book of the Horus Heresy, and I think it's worth remembering that even that was controversial, starting the Horus Heresy, because the heresy is the mythology of the setting. It is the myths that Space Marines tell themselves, and to actually uncover the weeds of what went on was something that was innately controversial. And for example, kind of going straight in, I guess, the Blood Angels tell themselves over and over again that the death of Sanguinius was this incredibly noble and necessary act because his death allowed the Emperor to beat Horus by exploiting a weakness within his son. But then Dan Abnett wrote The End and the Death Volume 2 and 3, and there doesn't really seem to have been any impact that Sanguinius' death had. Exactly why, whether that's a good thing or not, I don't really know, but it absolutely makes sense because no Blood Angels were there during the Siege of Terra, well, during the final confrontation. And so they would have absolutely no idea what impact their father had. So of course, they're going to tell themselves that the death of their gene father was a necessary and vital act. Hello everybody, welcome to another stream. I hope you're all doing well. I am currently working on a more detailed view of the Horus Heresy, well, of the Siege of Terra at the very least, and the battle between the Emperor and Horus, but that is currently underway. So I thought I would kind of do a more casual stream tonight, talking about what we think of this final book, and I guess really the final three books, because they absolutely are one novel, realistically. It is physically impossible to bind a hardbook back that large, apparently. So that's why it was split up. So I thought we would talk about it. I said on Saturday that I was like, look, I don't know how to review this book at this point because it hasn't properly sunk in. It hasn't sunk in how impactful, certain changes have been and whether I actually like it. And I kind of wanted to see what other people thought of it. It's very hard not to have your opinion twisted once you hear other opinions. So I kind of thought I would jump on stream, see what you guys think, and I thought I'd share my thoughts. But how is everybody? Hawkins Co. and Leather. If you haven't checked out Hawkins Co. Leather, he does great products. Go check him out. He's a very good friend of the channel. Hello, everybody. I'm building my Grey Knights right now as we speak. I enjoy spending money on the model side more than the books. Fair enough. I've read a lot of Lexicon Wikipedia, watched tons of videos from Sandman to other creators. I have infinite questions and stuff, but so far I love the universe. Good. Good. Can you explain using your painted figures on the shelf? No, that would be great. I could do the Astronomicon bit. If I can borrow someone's Sigismund, I can definitely do the Astronomicon part. That would be great. Well, the way GW has hurt the Blood Angels in the game with mediocre rules, their nerfed ending to the story is appropriate. Fair enough. Sorry, Blood Angels fans. Seems perfect for a grim, dark universe. The Golden Child, Sanguinius, died for nothing. Yeah, I think, and going, I guess, straight into things that I love. One of the things about the death of Sanguinius, and I guess the final confrontation that I really liked, I think a lot of people did, was how brutal it was. They were absolutely savage scenes. I believe the phrase beaten like a dog is used when Horus finally kills Sanguinius. He beats the hell out of his father, like bringing them all down on his head multiple times. Their battle is fascinating because we see them kind of, battle across multiple dimensions, etc. Very, very cool. So I really enjoyed that. It was, seeing that reaction of Sanguinius in the End of the Death Volume 2 as he beats Horus, again and again, it seems, to all of a sudden realize that Horus has been playing with him all along, and there's nothing, nothing you can do. It was brutal. It was kind of cool to read because it is the grim dark future. It's what we all love about the setting. Okay, Hawkins and Co Leather with a $50 super chat. Thank you very much, man. I have something of interest to contribute. Sandman for 10% off leather goods, or Sandman of Terra for 200% off our marathon GSAR watch. Oh, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. 25 coupons available. Thanks, man. Yeah, cool. So yeah, looks like it's the impromptu sponsoring of a video. I don't know if I have to mark the video now. I haven't done that, but yeah, this wasn't planned. I'll put a link to your stuff in the description, mate. But thank you so much for supporting the channel. I do really appreciate it. And a couple $dollars from Chris. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Besides Sanguinius, I'm good with it. Yeah, fair enough. I think it's a tough one. It was one of those things that I saw multiple theories as to how people thought, oh, maybe the death of Sanguinius was more impactful. So I had these comments on videos. Someone said, like, oh, doesn't he hurt Horus's shield generators? And the answer is like, not really. They like sputter at one point fighting against Horus. When Sanguinius fights against Horus, the shield generators kind of sputter. But it's later revealed that Horus has been kind of toying with Sanguinius all along. And so it was kind of, yeah, it kind of didn't really do anything. I will say, there was another theory, I think, that as the Emperor kind of tricks Horus in the final fight, perhaps it was the case that body that the body of the Emperor that Horus sees was actually the body of Sanguinius. And I saw that post on like Reddit, but I reread that passage when I saw it because I was like, did I miss that in the book? But I can't see that anywhere. I don't know where that's come from, but it doesn't actually look like Sanguinius had any impact whatsoever on the final fight. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, lots of comments about Sanguinius. Thank you for the great vids. No worries, man. Thank you for watching. I will say, if you do enjoy this kind of content, I do have a membership that you can join on the channel. And if you you join the channel, you get access to the Discord, and there's also more videos. So I did a video on the 10 biggest retcons that I felt from the Siege of Terra. Now, these are specifically going to be like changes from the original lore, not just like cool things that happened, but there were 10 pretty significant plot points that just straight up changed from, the rewriting of the Horus Heresy. But it's pretty cool. So yeah, do feel like support the channel if you feel like it. But overall, I've got to say, I guess, I'm going to give my whole opinion here. I thought about it for many days, how I felt about that final book. And I got to say, I think I actually really liked it. And the reason I say that is because I was initially apprehensive to say that, because it's so much. Like Dan Abnett, like hats off to him. He had to conclude a 64 book series. That is a lot of pressure, and everyone knows what nerds are like. People will jump on their YouTube channel and talk about your book and criticize it if they feel like it's necessary. So it's a lot of pressure to have on you. And I think he stuck the landing pretty well. And I said this on Saturday, it's kind of tough because I don't want to criticize a book because the things that I wanted to happen in it didn't happen. So I'll be honest, the Sanguinius stuff I'm kind of fine with, but this Loken I was really hoping would get some sort of noble end in the end of the book. And, if you're not familiar, Erebus just shanks him and Loken goes down. And I was devastated by that when it happened. And it was kind of the point, though, I guess, is the thing. Like, the reason his death was so quick and so just kind of, so sudden was because these shocking actions are replicated, or what's it called? They are reflected in the warp, and that's what creates these demons. So on the one hand, it was tough, but on the other hand, it was kind of the point of his death. But yeah, I thought I would talk today more specifically. I'll definitely jumping in chat probably more than usual. But I thought I'd talk about the things that I liked and the things that I didn't like, because there are definitely things that I think probably could have been different, but overall, as I say, I thought the book was really great. So starting off with pros, to start off with, I gotta say the symbolism in it is pretty cool. So there's a lot of things that are like circles completing, and there are things that are reflected from the early Horus Heresy into this final book. So there are two kind of very direct ways this happens, and then there are a couple of like minor ways. So the two direct ways are when Horus fights against the Emperor, they fight across like multiple planes of existence, multiple like dimensions, and so we see them like, you know, they'll be having like games of regicide, and they're using the tarot cards, and they're fighting in different ways, and they're actually fighting, it seems, across like multiple planets, like, and they're actually going through various key events that caused or were in the Horus Heresy. And likewise, there's a part where Loken ends up fighting these like apparitions of the Mournival who take the form of centaurs. And so again, like kind of brings you all the way back to that early Horus Heresy, which was a pretty cool thing to see, and kind of, yeah, seeing that side of things I really enjoyed. And so yeah, that was good. And then there's lots of kind of like, you know, completing the story kind of thing. So we get like the faith properly taking off in this book. Things like Cinderman's storyline gives us like a hard, solid definition of what demons are. And it's one of those things you think about and you're like, actually, if you've just read the Horus Heresy, a lot of what demons are won't have made sense to you. So actually having those kind of storylines is really cool. Then the next thing I want to talk about is something that's kind of both a pro and a con, which is that some of these storylines are clearly meant to be completed in multiple books. So one thing you've probably heard me talk about a few times is that Bequin 3 will probably be kind of like the secret ending of the Horus Heresy. That's how I think we'll see it, because there are so many things that are in this book that are setting up that storyline. So we have, for example, John using Enuncia, but he doesn't just use Enuncia, he uses the word of Enuncia that old person used to betray the Emperor thousands of years ago. And so it like works as this wonderful piece of symbolism going back to the Lightning Tower, which is a very important kind of card and plot point that you see in Warhammer 40k. But also it kind of looks forward to this idea of the King in Yellow and the City of Dust. And we actually see the City of Dust being created in the End and the Death Volume 2 as the Emperor kind of tears through the inevitable city, which was pretty cool. And of course, you know, doesn't need to be said, the actual plot development of Constantine Valdor, you know, if you're not aware of the Bequin storyline, you're probably quite puzzled by Valdor's actions there. He does a complete 180. He's a very harsh, very brash character towards the end of the book. You know, he's basically just a dick, and you're like, why is he doing this? But the point of that is that, you know, his character has now changed, and he is becoming this King in Yellow storyline ever since he stabs Abaddon and takes on, understands the memories and understands what's going to happen in the future for the Imperium. So yeah, and I did just want to talk about the Dark Angels as well for a bit. One of the big plot points that I thought was gonna come up in this book, and one of my predictions for this final novel, was going to be that we were going to get kind of like a strong idea or indication on who the character of Cypher was going to be. Now, I say this for two reasons. A, it is the case that at the end of the End and the Death Volume 2, there's this line from Zahariel, who is the Lord Cypher, where he says that he wants Coursewayne to kind of take on the mantle of Cypher. And I was like, okay, this is the switch over. But then that never really came to fruition. Zahariel is then back in the final book. He's instrumental in getting the Astronomicon relit. And Coursewayne is just like, you know, he's obviously a legend, and he's this incredible warrior that fights with Sigismund. His union with Sigismund in the book is really cool. Sigismund actually has to kind of like earn Coursewayne's trust. And the irony of that is hilarious, of course. Everyone knows what the Dark Angels will do after this. But yeah, I was kind of surprised that we didn't get more on the Dark Angels and Fallen in this novel. Isn't that kind of like relationship? It's just kind of like a cool plot point that the Dark Angels and Fallen were there. Like, but I'm interested, again, this is all going into like future novels. So now we have Zahariel's storyline is now interesting, because Zahariel is this member of the Fallen who hates the Lion because the Lion brutally killed his cousin. He wants Calibanite independence with Luther, but at the same time, Zahariel did, save the birthword of humanity. He has witnessed up close the bright light of the Emperor. I'm curious to see whether this might bring Zahariel back. Maybe that's why we get Cypher being kind of more loyal than Zahariel is, because Zahariel is so far gone. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So, did the people that prayed in the Astronomicon died? A lot of them die. So when the Astronomicon gets relit, a lot of them die kind of instantly. But they're very happy to go, I assume, and they're more than willing to die, of course. And Keeler's storyline has been, is building throughout the entire heresy, pretty much. So it's, it was quite a lot. The volume 2 was more interesting and more impressive stuff for me. We learned so many things about older lore and stuff waiting to be made. Yeah, I think that's probably. I think the second one was probably my favorite. I covered the Dark King stuff at quite some length, as I'm sure you guys are aware, and I kind of liked that storyline. I thought it was cool. I think that the Dark King storyline is more interesting than this like Horus being alive type thing that they've kind of left it on. Or sorry, Horus being able to be brought back, I should say. But I'm kind of alright with both. I don't think you needed to do both of those things. I think you should have only done one. But the idea of Horus coming back is always going to be an appealing thing, I guess. So I guess we'll see. I guess there is a slight worry everyone has that like no one ever dies in 40k, which is a tough line to cross because all of a sudden you make the characters in the setting feel like their deaths, aren't very meaningful. But I don't think we'd see them for a very, very long time. Erebus should wreck Vashtor's plans for memes. Doesn't make sense, but would be jokes. To be fair, I quite liked Be'lakor actually in the Arcs of Omen storyline. He does try to mess with Vashtor's plans, and it is pretty entertaining. It's very on brand for Vashtor, and I would love to see that kind of plot point expanded upon in the future, because it'd be a good. I don't think they really know what to do with Be'lakor in 40k, so that would be a good kind of plan for him. It's just to kind of maybe try and steal the godhood that Vashtor seeks or something like that. Could work really well. One of the things about Warhammer 40k is that nothing is truly known and can be retconned at any point. These books seem set in stone and unretconnable. Does Warhammer 40k lose something with that? It's true, I guess, in a lot of ways. This is very foundational lore. This is kind of the most important book we will ever get in a lot of ways. I don't think we'll ever get books more important than these. And yeah, they'll always be referred to, as how does the Emperor view his sons? The actions of Abaddon. Everything's going to come back to these going forward. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. I think I'm one of those people. I know people like to have these kind of, to be honest, it normally devolves into arguments on the internet because, of course, these things always do. But one of the things that people say is like, oh, nothing in 40k is canon. Everything can be retconned. And I'll be honest, I'm not saying I dislike that, because obviously there are plenty of things that can be viewed in multiple ways. So the scattering of the Primarchs is the best example. We get like 4 different versions of how the Primarchs are scattered throughout the heresy, and it's up to you to believe whether all of them, none of them, some of them are correct, and no one can tell you different. And that's pretty cool. So there's definitely stuff like that does exist, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to have a setting that you can kind of get into and get involved with if you basically take the stance of, oh, well, anything can change, nothing has any meaning. So it's a tough one, really. But I kind of sit in the middle, really. They had to leave something in the dark, and Cypher is really relevant in future books. Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely indicates to me that we're going to go quite strongly into a scouring storyline. Of course, we've got the Lion now in Warhammer 40k, and for you to do the Lion's reunion with Cypher or Luther, you probably need to do the Fall of Caliban first. I think it would make a lot of sense. I think it's also like in terms of like a strategy for Games Workshop, that's a hell of a way to build hype. If they announce a Fall of Caliban book where they cover the storyline of the Lion going back to Caliban and Caliban being destroyed, then all of a sudden people are going to be super hyped for the next part of the Lion storyline in 40k, where we see his reunion with Luther, or potentially they sometimes they write things that are kind of will have flashbacks in. So it might be the case that they're going to write a Lion versus Luther book in 40k, but that's going to have flashbacks to their original fight. So something like that. Assuming Luther is traitor, he might have repented. You never know. What if Nemiel was made Cypher and his execution was a show? Oh, I'd love it. His execution wasn't real. That was one of the worst parts of the Horus Heresy. I hated that. It was written twice and it sucks both times. Loved the Khan video. Thank you very much. We have 2 ciphers. You could do 2 ciphers. A very popular theory is that there was some sort of blending between Zahario and Corswain. Now, the reason that actually works quite well in terms of connecting it to this book at the end of the Death Volume 3 is because we also see the blending of Cat and Acte in this novel. And it looks like the Moriana character in 40k, Moriana's a sorceress who advises Abaddon the Despoiler. It looks like she might be connected to Acte now, and that would make a lot of sense because Serene has a huge amount of importance in the heresy. But yeah, so that like the fact that we've seen those 2 characters have their minds kind of blended would actually perhaps posit the idea that maybe we're going to see something similar for Cypher and for Corswain and Zahario. Maybe we'll see them be blended, which would be pretty cool. Could be something like that. How does Abaddon best Valdor? He doesn't really. I mean, so Abaddon. So in fact, I haven't got the artwork, but there is artwork in the book of Valdor's fight versus Abaddon. It's pretty cool. So Abaddon gets stabbed, and at that point, in fact, I can read you the quote. The word despoiler comes up. Hang on. Let me grab another question. Nothing changed the law. It was a myth, and now we know the truth. So yeah, I mean that's basically what the writers would probably tell you, I imagine. But at the same time, it's your law. You can read it. Where is it? Okay, cool. So let me. Did I grab any art of Valdor? No, I don't think I did. Okay, never mind. So when Abaddon fights against Constantine Valdor, and Valdor actually stabs Abaddon with the Apollonian spear, he kind of understands the truth behind Abaddon, and he learns a truth. What is it? He learns a truth so foul, Constantine recoils, and he lets go of the spear. And that's the first time Valdor has ever let go of the spear in a fight, because he never drops it. As custodians never drop their weapons, which was pretty cool. And at that point, the Justarian basically outnumber Valdor, and I think there's 4 custodians left in that chapter, something like that. And at that point, Dawn flings in, and then not long after, loads of Blood Angels who have fallen to the Red Thirst, the Black Rage, sorry, they fly in as well, and Valdor and Dawn use the attacking Blood Angels to escape, basically, which it's pretty cool. He doesn't stab him. Abaddon blocks the stab. Let me read you the passage, mate. Hang on. Oh, there we go. So, hang on. Abaddon's. Yeah, he does get it. So a few beads of bright blood well up between Abaddon's knuckles when he is gripping the spear blade. So yeah, he does get him with the spear, and that's how he learns it. They really should have ended with the Emperor destroying Horus with his own sword. Yeah, but I guess again they were going for like symbolism because the Athame blade is the thing that kind of kills Horus in the third book, and so or second book, and so it's the Athame daggers, which is the blade kind of split up. One of those is what destroys Horus in the end or kills him finally. So it was kind of pretty cool. Yeah. But cool. Oh, Chris, you're just trying to destroy the distinction between getting stabbed and getting cut. That's the distinction you're trying to draw, mate. I'll be honest. So, does anyone expect GW to actually end the story? I want it badly, but will they do it next decade or two? I think one day, and it's always on the cards. They ended the old world storyline. Like, you know, if the sales of Warhammer 40k ever drop, and they probably will drop at some point, when that happens, they will probably think about ending the storyline. Because you know they probably would. Or if the Amazon TV show stuff takes off, then it will just go on forever. They're always saying how above and beyond the Banana Boys are, but whenever they fight anyone from Chaos, they either die or barely win. Well, so I guess this is the thing about Custodes fans. So, like, Custodes fans, on the one hand, it is true that Custodes fans can get beaten. Custodes can get beaten, but on the other hand, they get beaten normally by overwhelming odds. So, like, it is true that, like, they can lose, but anyone can lose in theory. It's just that they're usually massively outnumbered. There are times when they lose against foes that they seemingly shouldn't lose to, but normally it's against like named characters who are, you know, absurdly powerful in their own right, and the custodians do have their limits. So that's the thing. I never thought like back in 1718 I would be alive to see the end of Horus. Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's a crazy time. It's a crazy time to be alive. I like the whole, in the end, it was a father killing his son with a stone knife. Yeah, so there was stuff like that, which was kind of like a really nice moment. There are quite a few really kind of sweet moments in the book. I thought I do want to do a video on old Elenius Person at some point, because his death was like actually really sad. Like it was a really sad scene. So I really do feel, I did. I didn't think I liked Elenius Person as much as I did until I read that part. But it was pretty cool, and it's nice to have his story kind of complete now, which will be cool for a video, I think. The dagger wasn't from the Kinnebrack sword. He gets it from a word bearer. I'm pretty certain it will have come from the Kinnebrack sword. The anatheme. At the very least, it's the same kind of dagger as the weapon that brought Horus low. So it's basically the same thing. But I'm pretty certain it's the same thing. I don't know if it's actually specified as it is, but I would assume it would have been, because we know that the blade was split up into daggers. So I assume Erebus would have just given it to another word bearer, and it's from that word bearer that all gets the dagger. Logically, that's how it would make sense. But they might not have actually shown the interaction of Erebus giving the dagger to the word bearer, if that makes sense. When do you think we will rejoin the Empire with the Expeditionary Fleet Legion? Sorry, I don't know what that means, mate. It would have been cool if the Emperor encased Horus's soul in the sword. Then Gilliman used the soul of Horus to save the Empire in the Indomitus Crusade. Would have been epic. Like a light mirror to Drachni End where it holds souls. Could do something like that. I don't know. That would be interesting. I will say as well, actually, one thing on the back of the book that I thought was quite shocked about, actually, was the fact that the installation of the Emperor onto the Golden Throne was so quick in the novel. You get like kind of one chapter in that book about like you get Malgador's perspective on the Emperor being put onto the Golden Throne, and he gives like his last kind of like, oh, I wish I could tell Vulcan how much I love him and Dawn how much I love him, which is a very sweet moment. But I really thought we'd get like details on, like, I don't know, the Emperor psychically telling Dawn or something how to, you know, change the machines so that they could be used to, you know, keep the Emperor alive. And Dan Abnett kind of confirms this kind of reciprocal relationship. But yeah, I thought we'd get more details. But yeah, I was a bit shocked at that. We need a 3-book series for dang it, yeah. There will never be a civil war between the Lion and G-Man. They both respect each other way too much. Yeah, I don't think there'll ever be a civil war. I think that, I think if anything, there will be the opposite. Their reunion will be very nice. And I think that the reason for that is it'll be like a mirror to Unremembered Empire, which is also written by Dan Abnett. And I think that, because that their meeting in the Horus Heresy is a kind of memorable scene. And I think we'll probably see a flip of that, so that now when we see them fight, it will be, sorry, when we see them meet in 40k, we'll see them kind of get along really well. We'll see them hug, and a lot of the bravado of the Lion will have been dropped. I think that kind of thing will be pretty cool. How does the Emperor not know about these daggers before and have a ton of them? He might have a ton of them somewhere. Maybe he didn't think he needed one, and when he went to face Horus, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know if he has any. It's not actually like confirmed whether or not they are chaos in origin. I don't think it's just said they're like a Xenos weapon. They're incredibly powerful, and they obviously like are favored by the Chaos forces in the Heresy. But yeah, it's not entirely clear if they're actually chaos weapons from my point of view. Because like there's a bit where Gilliman wants to use them, and the Lion kind of talks him out of it. But I'm not sure whether that's because they are actually chaos weapons or not. They're not like demon weapons or anything. The lack of a proper epilogue makes the last book subpar. Yeah, I mean, it ends with Euphrates Tequila kind of praying because she's not allowed into that close to the Emperor, but she's, you know, starts praying. But yeah, I guess it was nice because it kind of reminds you of, this is a huge change that we see from the start of the book to the end. All of a sudden, it's a huge change from the start of the series to the end, because by the end of the series, now religion is, you know, the worship of the Emperor is now fully underway. So it's a complete 180 to the start, where religion is banned within the Imperium. Pretty sure that Peck is going to be the Alpha Legion with Eisenhorn. Could be. Doesn't that Alpha Legion die? I'm pretty certain he's dead. But there's probably another one. There's always another Alpharius in these novels. I'm pretty certain one of the Alphariuses dies. Well, the main Alpharius in Beckwin dies, doesn't he? I'm pretty sure. I have to double check. I would love a series in the Scouring. Almost certainly. The Alpha Legion is still loyal. It's one Legion really reforged by Biggie and Malkador, I think. I wouldn't say it's entirely loyal. It's definitely not entirely loyal, because we have very evil and traitorous Alpha Legion members in 40k. But I think there's a strong argument to say that big components of it are going to be loyal, or in their own weird way are working towards the goals of the Imperium or the Emperor. The finale didn't need to be 3 books. The second one is mostly him repeating himself or hammering points that don't need to be hammered. I get that a bit, to be fair. So I do think that the 3 books were a bit overblown. So one of the things that shocked me was that, as I say, we didn't get a lot on the Emperor being put onto the Golden Throne. We didn't get a lot on what happens after the Emperor is installed onto the Golden Throne, which I thought most people thought there would be. That would be why we get 3 novels, was because half of the last one would be what happens afterwards. There's a lot of afterwork to cover up, but that didn't happen. What happened was, the Emperor gets, as soon as the Emperor falls and, you know, Abaddon finds Loken dies, we kind of rush through things going towards the end, which was a bit of a shocker. But on the other hand, there were some things that were probably, I think, overblown or had too much story time. So I don't think the Basilio Foe storyline had quite a cool ending with a suggestion that he's kind of alive in another body. But I don't think we needed that storyline to be as long as it was. Am I wrong in that, do you think? I don't think we did. The Dark Angels and Sigismund storyline, big Dark Angels fan, but even then I was like, I don't think we needed as much on that, because like I don't want to say it was pointless. Like the Astronomicon stuff was cool, but not long after the Astronomicon is relit is Horus defeated. And when Horus is defeated, a lot of the forces are weakened around Chaos. The forces of Chaos around Terra are weakened. And so at that point, Guilliman can kind of find his way to Terra anyway. So I almost didn't really get why the Astronomicon thing was so important, because if the Astronomicon hadn't been relit, would it have made a massive difference? Did I miss that? I don't think it. I think it would have been fine. It had probably been a little bit later, and it does say that the loyalists kind of mop up the traitor forces quite ruthlessly. But I don't really think they would have lost too much. Do you think Loken talking with Abaddon and vouching for him and the Legion with Dawn and G-Man and Loken's perspectives describe what happened to the Lost Legions? I don't know. I don't think the Lost Legions would have been. I don't think that would have been down to any Primarchs. I think it would have been down to the Emperor. So I don't think Guilliman. I don't think Loken could have talked around the Emperor when the last Primarchs had to be destroyed. Concerning the next Primarch to return, should we analyze this or simply follow Commander Dante around to see who he runs it next? William, thank you so much for the super chat, mate. It's a good question. It is quite funny that he's met both of the loyalist Primarchs that have come back. It is, a bit odd. I guess, I don't know. I think it's almost like they're doing it to remind you that Dante is still important. That's what it kind of feels like. The Astronomicon is the first demonstration of the Imperial faith being literally lit. It's a big moment and a big story point. I mean, it feels like a big moment. Like, don't get me wrong, it feels like this huge thing when it's finally relit. But I don't know if it actually had much of an impact. The Astronomicon gave the Emperor his last boost. I don't know. Well, there is a bit where when the Emperor defeats Horus finally, there's a bit what does describe his blast as being like the Astronomicon, as the Astronomicon does it, like a metaphor or a simile. But I don't know if it's actually said specifically that he's powered by the Astronomicon. Maybe that's what he's implying by that. Maybe that would make sense. But I don't actually know if that's what it is. Gave him the faith boost. Yeah, it could be that kind of thing. I hope that we receive an update on Pandemonium's release and storyline now that the end and the death is out of the way. We need universe progression. So I think Dan Abnett has said he's also finished a book in another series he's working on. So it might be Gaunt's Ghosts. It might be Pandemonium. I guess we'll see. Pandemonium's been coming for a long time. I also really want to see the Black Legion 3 book from Aaron Densky-Belden. That would be really cool to see as well. Foe was all to set up the terminus decree that the Grey Knights have, which is only mentioned in the Codex. Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's also like the concept of I wonder what they'll do with Foe, because if you're not familiar, Foe is this war criminal who creates this terminus decree, which is device. That was an interesting plot point, actually. So the terminus decree device, what the terminus sanction is called in the Heresy, is this device that would destroy all of the transhumans. However, in the End of the Death Volume 3, he basically upgrades it so that you can target specific gene warriors. So there's a part where they have it set to destroy all the sons of Horus. And I'm like, why don't they just do this in 40k? Why don't they just use this thing? So I don't know if something's going to happen to the Terminus Decree. There's going to be a plot point here. Foe then dies, but it appears he's kind of put he's made a clone, or he's put his soul into another body. He's one of the chosen of Malkador, and so he's still alive at the end of the Heresy in like a way. But I don't know whether that's going to have any actual impact on the long-term storyline, or whether he's just going to be like a villain for a novel, maybe. I don't know, I guess we'll see. But he could be set up to be something quite big because he is like a uber mega genius, which would be pretty cool. I'm more excited about what's going on in 40k than 30k. Yeah, I think I'm the same. I generally prefer 40k though. The Astronomicon buffs the Emperor, calls the rest of the loyalists, and helps them moral around Terra. Yeah, I think stuff like, yeah, it could be something like that. But like, I don't know, just felt like it wasn't a lot. I think Rogel is next to return, a broken man mentally and physically, not stoic, one hand. I know you think it's Hawkboy, but I think it's Dawn. Hawkboy is typically sanguineous, so I think it's probably the Warhawk. It's a Warhawk boy. Dante needs some spotlight for the new model. Yeah, they kind of rushed out that Dante model. I thought it should have been a bigger thing, him getting kind of a whole new body. It's a big part of Dante's character in 40k. It's that like he's got this very old body, but this like genius mind and all this experience. But now he's actually got a new body. He should be an absolute weapon. It's arguably the point the Emperor's divinity becomes true, at least in the eyes of the citizenry, and probably is the point the ecclesiarchy starts to be created. Yeah, maybe. How does Sangi getting beaten so easily change Lehman versus Horus? I don't know if it really changes the Lehman versus Horus storyline. This is one of those things. So the Lehman or Us storyline is again another thing that I probably would have built into this book. So the Lehman versus Horus storyline for me is another thing. Always felt like it was a bit pointless. It always felt like that was bloat in the heresy. Now, they had to explain why Lehman Russ wasn't at the Siege of Terra, but it doesn't really feel like Lehman Russ achieved much. So he does stab Horus with the Dionysian spear, and when he does that, Horus gets cured of his insanity temporarily. However, enslaved to darkness, he ends up embracing the powers of chaos, and yeah, he kind of is healed anyway. But it didn't really seem to have a long-term plan, any long-term benefit. It didn't really delay the traitors because the traitors were delayed anyway in fetching Angron and Fulgrim. So it didn't really have any impact on the storyline. And I kind of thought it would be cool if they made some sort of mention to the bite of the wolf or something in this novel that kind of made you feel like Lehman Russ had actually done something, because he just hasn't really done anything useful for the loyalists, really. But there is a light inside him, a light behind the eyes, the pure white light of a species that, in its madness, believes him beyond all reason and trusts in him beyond all logic. Yeah, so that's where that I think is right before right before the Emperor beats Horus finally, and like, yeah, the resounding cry of the Emperor must live has been building up more and more. To be fair, without the Astronomicon, Gilliman and co. wouldn't have gone to Terra as well, or way too late. Yeah, maybe. I don't know if it would have made much of a difference. Do we know anything about the Dark Angels and Lion's story progressing in 40k? I have actually I did get the box, so I will get the new codex this weekend. So I will let you know. I'll probably do something on it, actually. The collective belief of the people in the mountain helped with the final push. I think that's probably fair. I think that's probably fair that the faith kind of helped him out in the end. It's all... Sandman, do you think the child Katsuhiro is carrying the Star Child or a shard of the Emperor's soul? I don't think that will be the Star Child in 40k, but potentially there might be some link. It could be interesting. I forgot how old the Astronomicon is. Was the Hollow Mountain there before the Empire was founded? So I believe the Astronomicon was constructed. The construction was ordered by the Emperor not long after Mars was brought in. I believe. So yeah, it all kind of feeds in. Like when the Great Crusade kind of kicked off, one of the reasons people thought the Emperor was divine was because he seemingly knew that these warp storms would be calmed, and he was right. And because of course Slaanesh was born, and the warp storms calmed. And well, after an initial very big explosion, but yeah. So it wasn't long after Mars was brought into the fold that he ordered the Astronomicon to be lit. I thought the whispers Horus was hearing was the Astronomicon. It might be that. Maybe I'm being dismissive of that. It might well be the case. Wait, so what was powering the Astronomicon before the Emperor was on the throne, or are they separate things? I thought the Golden Throne was sort of also the Astronomicon. So the Astronomicon was powered by the Emperor during the Great Crusade. He could just do it from afar. It's not the greatest explanation, is the answer to that question, but that is the official explanation, I'm pretty sure. Malgador was there for Biggie at the end, saved a small part of power for him at the end before dying. Yes, true. Which is actually exactly in line with like the old lore, which is pretty cool. Basiliopho takes on Zaranchek Xanthus' identity. Xanthus equals the Zanite Inquisitors. That would be cool. That's a really cool idea. That's a really very, very good shout. Xanathism is a radical philosophy of the Inquisition. These are ones that become traitors. No. Well, some of them do. Interesting. That's a really cool idea. So maybe he makes his own messed up version of the Inquisition. Good shout, that gamer guy. I will look into that. That looks pretty cool. Yeah. Was the Terminus decree on Titan before it disappeared? I don't think it actually... It doesn't end up on Titan in the book, but they do say it's probably going to get taken to Titan at the end, basically. Seems like an obvious L not to have Vulcan at Terra when it hits the fan during the Siege of Terra. Vulcan was on Terra during the Siege of Terra. Sorry, I don't know if I'm misunderstanding your question, mate. You guys remember the Votan that was Nito? Yeah, we do need Leagues of Votan lore, and I'm sure we will get some Leagues of Votan lore in the future because yeah, I think it's just such a big hole in the range. I imagine a lot of it was planned. I thought they would probably build some into the Heresy. The Leagues of Votan Codex does suggest that they are actually around during the Heresy, and some do side with Horus, I believe. So maybe we'll get something on the Leagues of Votan and the Heresy. That would be pretty cool. I don't actually know. But yeah, I think we've not had any word or announcement or suggestion we're getting any books this year, which is a bit of a shame. But I hope I'm wrong about that. The real heresy was the friends we made along the way. Absolutely. I got the impression Abnet was saying with the tarot cards that in the end, Emps really planned and saw everything to micro level to win. The Astronomicon, OLP, Loken, etc., which is mind-boggling. Yeah, I definitely think there's something to be said actually for maybe, it could be a fun thing to in the video. The final cards that will come out in that book are really interesting. Obviously, the spoiler is one of the cards. Yeah, the card, his death is kind of prophesized by the cards. There's the cards that all come out when the Emperor and Horus kind of like duel in their dimensions. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for analyzing those cards, I think, because they usually mean something. Lehman versus Horus was not the all-powerful Horus. That's very true as well. Yeah. You think he's going to join Fabius's little gang? I don't think so, but I don't know. I don't think that would come up because that's quite a long plot point to jump in at. It suffers from Snow White syndrome. We know the story. The details being added in are great, but it's facing its greatest enemy, decades of headcanon. Good luck pleasing everyone. I mean, that's true. That we all have a lot of headcanon. I have it as well. Like, and it's very hard. And I have had that where like I talk about things on stream and I'm like, I can't remember if, because this is the thing. Some of the books I read like 10 years ago. So I'm trying to remember how it is in the actual book. So I have to recheck things quite often now because I have to like double check to make sure like, am I remembering that correctly? Even like, the first Horus Heresy book, I remember I said something once and someone was like, that's not right. And I was like, is it not? I hadn't read that book for like 10 years. So, what are you going to do? That's the thing. I probably have to reread the whole Heresy now. If he did not stab him, Horus would be dead before the siege. You mean Russ? I don't know. I don't know what you mean by that, mate, to be honest. He did make a whole legion who was extremely loyal. I don't know who that's referring to. Sorry. I've jumped ahead, I think. Such a missed opportunity to not have a cool Leviathan and Contempt Dread character. Makes no sense why there isn't more, especially when they're supposed to be the oldest and most badass of the chapter. True, I guess. There should be a lot of legendary, Contemptors and Leviathans. Well, to be fair, there won't be many Leviathans left in 40k. But yeah, in theory, they're all legendary. Well, the majority of them are legendary heroes. So yeah, I guess that is the case. It's just kind of not in the rules of the game. But they are, in theory, all absolute legends. Dante should die. Well, he's not dying now. He just got a new model. GW should then release a new Sanguinor model that looks rather suspiciously similar. Now, yeah, I do think we'll get a Sanguinor model that looks very Sanguinius-esque. I definitely think that will happen. But I don't think they'll kill Dante. I think he's too popular as a character. Yes, it was worth it. No saga of this length could have a perfect ending. That's true. I mean, absolutely. And I think it was definitely a valiant effort on his part. And I'm not a literary, what's the word I'm looking for? Literary critic. So I can't evaluate a book on that front. I can only tell you what parts of 40k lore I like and don't like, which is a far easier job. But I will say, like, I didn't like things like the pacing of the novels. I thought those things were quite good. The fact that every time there's a big bomb, they normally like switch to like one of the scenes with like Ran or Sigismund or Corswade, so that you kind of have a pattern, like a chapter to like take in what you've just learned. There's stuff like that, which is like, it's a well-written book, if you want to look at it that way. But I'm out of my depth when talking about these things, to be honest with you. I think Big E is going to remove the blessings of chaos from his sons and return them to what they first started out as, and then let them loose on the gods of the warp. True, but that sounds like a very kind of end game scenario. But yeah, it's kind of thing that I could see them doing. Super chat from Change of Ways. Thank you, Zeech. Rumor, kin are men of stone, iron kin are men of iron. That didn't turn bad. Thoughts? Hey, that works. I mean, I suspect they're going to have the Votan be something entirely separate. And the reason I say that is because the actual nature of the Votan themselves is like pretty odd. So they are AI, but they are also, I think the book says they also have like STC parts in them and stuff like that. So they're like they very much seem to be their own thing. So, but yeah, that absolutely tracks. And obviously Iron Kin, Men of Iron, very clear connection to draw. Men of Stone being the kin, they like to mine. It definitely works. The Men of Gold, I guess, would then be the Votan, but does that work? Because in theory, yeah, the Men of Gold are a very tough thing to put into whoever you say. Very few things match the Men of Gold exactly, unless the thing I think matches the Men of Gold closely would be the Old Ones, but only if you believe the Old Ones created humanity, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. In my opinion. But yeah. Gilliman and the rest do not matter in the end. Only Horus versus the Emperor mattered. True. The Amber King. Hello, Hal. My opinion, I think the book is slightly tarnished by the obvious setup for the Scouring series. Poor Abner has to set up a product line rather than complete the story arc. Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty fair part. And this is what's so interesting about it, is because like from my point of view, weirdly, that's not a massive thing, and for a lot of us it won't be, purely because I'm planning to read Scouring anyway. But for a lot of people who were just reading the Horus Heresy as a series, now it's like, oh yeah, these storylines that you were kind of hoping to be resolved and not, that's kind of tough. And one of the things I think Dan Abnett has said is that he wants the book to stand as a book on its own. And from that respect, as you say, how it does kind of fail, because the book doesn't stand as it does on its own because it's setting up 4 or 5 other books that Dan Abnett probably won't even write. So like it's kind of weird. Salmon, how long do you think it would take the Blood Angels fans to get over this? I don't know. Blood Angels are the most popular Space Marine faction, so they could have done it with a knockdown. You know, they're very, very happy bunch. You know, I'm a Dark Angels fan. People make fun of the Dark Angels all the time. That's nothing new to me. So maybe the Blood Angels fans deserve it. I'm just being honest. Just being honest here, guys. I'm just kidding. The relationship between Lion and Sanguinius is very strong, so totally respect my bloody brothers. Pretty sure the Space Wolves gave themselves that title. Hello. The Golden Throne stuff was way before the Emperor found the spot. So I think the book Dark Six. This is the thing about the Golden Throne. The Golden Throne stuff people, I think, get wrong a lot, but it's very understandable. The reason it's understandable is because if you open any 40k book, it says the Emperor sits mobile on the Golden Throne, which is a relic from the Dark Age of humanity, blah, 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 right? However, that is technically not true, okay? So that part of any 40k book is wrong, because we do get specific details on the Golden Throne from the Fabricator General of Mars and from the Drukhari, and they both tell us that the Emperor created the Golden Throne from various Xenos artifacts. So the Golden Throne being on Terra might not actually be true. I don't think that's true. I think the Emperor made it on Terra from various Xenos artifacts that he found. So, I mean, maybe part of it is from the Dark Age of technology, like a small part of it, but the central components are said to be all Xenos. True story. Which, as I say, is a very easy thing to get wrong, because every single 40k book says it is a relic from the Dark Age of technology. But there you go. Again, it's mythology. Those bits are mythology. They're not actually fact. So there you go. Did anything happen with the demons going to Sanguinius's body? There are various demons that kind of come out of the shadows and stuff, and Sanguinius gets tied up in the end of the second book, and they get fought by Loken and Leto, etc. But yeah. Should Malkador be reincarnated? No, Malkador is very, very dead. The Astronomicon requires more power because it's also holding the door shut between Terra and the Webway, because it's full of demons. So yeah, I typically think of a distinction between the Astronomicon and the Webway gate. So I believe that the Emperor is keeping the Webway gate closed and doing the Astronomicon kind of separately, but I guess it's, we're talking magic stuff here. So yeah. It's a machine that's being put into one thing. After so many ridiculous errors in 30k, do you think the Space Wolves were relieved when Lehman Russ finally left? I don't know. Funny. Sorry, Space Wolf fans. Sorry. I do actually like Lehman Russ, I should say. Like, that's the thing. Like, Wolfsbane is still like a great book. Like, it's a really enjoyable novel. It just makes no fucking sense. What do you think of the last words the Emperor said to Horus? Yes, I did talk about this in a video, so I do think that they're nodding there to the idea that the Emperor of Mankind, that Horus, will return in like the end game of Warhammer 40k. Maybe there will be some plot point in 40k around his potential return. The problem is that he usurps Abaddon. But maybe they're going to do this. Maybe the plan is to bring Horus back in some way, because Abaddon is a very mixed he's one of those characters that people have a very mixed opinion of him. I like Abaddon, but a lot of people do not like him as a character. But I've never met anybody who's actually read the Black Legion books to dislike Abaddon. He's very likable in those books. You'd follow Abaddon. That's the thing. You'd follow him. The Golden Throne hurt his soul. Perpetual's powers can only do so much. Hell Magnus killed him too in a previous model. Oh, Malcador. Yeah, Malcador is definitely very dead. Sigillites weren't perpetual. They just lived long. So I think there is actually... So I used to think that too. But I believe there is a line in one of the Horus Heresy books that does say does group Malcador in the Perpetuals. It's like the Perpetuals, Erda, the Emperor, Malcador, and so yeah, I think that he is supposed to be perpetual now. It makes sense that he is. Do you think that the Emperor will meet John Grammaticus in the past, and it's John that gives the Emperor the insight into how to start the Empire back in antiquity, and the Emperor is following threads? I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with the John storyline. Obviously, he's going to have to finish his work to make sure Ol and John end up talking to the Emperor. But I don't know what they're going to do with him there. I don't, you know, after that, will he come back to 40k? You know, will he end up being some sort of like Inquisitor, or will he help out Malcador? It wouldn't surprise me if one or two of the characters end up allying with Valdor in the City of Dust. I think that would make sense, but I don't know. So Big E's helping out his sons like Gilliman in the material world. Is it a stretch to say he's doing the same with the souls of his sons in the warp? Maybe he's protecting the souls. I mean, it appears that Sanguinius's soul has been kind of shattered, because we see like multiple versions of Sanguinius's soul in 40k. So that's what I would guess they will do. And there is actually a weird line in this book. There's a really weird line that talks about when Litu finds Sanguinius and he feels the body. He says it doesn't just feel dead, it feels like the soul has been destroyed. So like maybe they are going to do something around Sanguinius's soul being shattered. Maybe Horus's final death blow, because Horus was so, you know, almost god level power. Maybe he actually does shatter Sanguinius's soul. Maybe that's the storyline. I don't know. But it sounds pretty cool. The Old Law has a squat biker attacking the gates for chaos. There we go. Oh, I didn't know that. So Horus was the real one to put a crack in Horus's armor. The Blood Angels got it wrong, presumably because they're not exactly experts in who's Horus and who's not. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a legend from the Blood Angels that got told too many times. The last Horus Chaos has infinite power and is invulnerable and super immortal. That is what Big E has to outsmart. Very true. Do you think there is a chance for redemption for the Primarchs that fell to Chaos? I definitely think there is. Yeah. I mean, Gilliman says to Mortarion that he could be redeemed. The fleshy, corpsey Emperor, what do you call it? The Kurz makes an effigy of the Emperor in his Primarch novel, which tells him that none of the Primarchs are beyond redemption, which would be pretty cool. What if Alpha Primus is Litu? Litu is a fascinating. I do want to do a video on him at some point, because there's the weird part in the book where Litu. One thing about the novel that I thought was really interesting was that, small point, Horus is aware of Erda in the novel, because there's a part where the Emperor's unconscious and Litu goes up to the Emperor, and Litu's like, "Yo, wake up. Erda sent me here. She would want you to get up and fight. I think he calls Horus like your demon son or something like that. He says, get up, go fight your demon son." And the Emperor's Horus then walks up to Litu, picks him up, and it's like, "What are you?" Because Litu is an anomaly. He is a Primarchless Space Marine. So Horus is like, "What are you?" And then he says, "I heard you." And then Horus can kind of like, he's so powerful, he can kind of like read people's names from the air and stuff. So he tries to read Litu's name, but Litu doesn't have a name. He just has a number, which is, of course, is LE2. And Horus says, no name, just a number. Like, who are you? And then he goes, I heard you mention Erda. She's not coming. She is very dead. Erebus has told me that he has killed Erda. And yeah, Leto starts to grieve. But then what's very weird is then Horus, I think he just like throws Leto, if I remember correctly, and he throws Leto at Khorne. So he throws him like 200 meters, and when Leto looks up, he sees like a massive archway and a huge metal wall. And then he realizes that that is not an archway or a huge metal wall. It is the axe of Khorne. And then the chapter ends with Khorne like looking down at Leto, because Khorne is like, you know, hundreds of meters high. And yeah, so it's a very interesting scene. The next time we see Leto, he's like back in the he's back in the, what do you call it, the court of Lupercal, and he is, you know, seemingly fine and helps out with Garvio Loken. But it was a wild scene, you know, lots of stuff going on. And in theory, at that point, the warp and the vengeful spirit and the inevitable city, they're all like connected. So maybe Horus threw him at Khorne. I don't know what's going on there. I think the heresy lore was a mistake. I wish they had left it to the realm of legends and focused all the effort in current 40k storylines, mystery. I mean, I don't think you're alone in that, John. I think lots of people feel that way. It is understandable. There are some things that I think people feel like they are missing. So yeah, I totally get that. Oh, another super chat. Thank you for the super chat there, mate. Another super chat from Change of Ways. Iliad and the Eldar are the real final threat. They help wiping out chaos, only to become fully unrestrained and worse than before their fall. I mean, it would be cool to have the Eldar seeming like a big threat again. They often don't feel like a big threat in the setting, you know, them and the Orcs, which is always a bit of a shame, because the Orcs and the Eldar are the two like original factions in Warhammer for Xenos. So it's a shame that they don't really feel like much. But hey ho. How many pages are there in this series? Oh, I don't know. Yes, please do a video that breaks down the cards that are drawn by Biggie and Malkador. Yeah, that's a good shout. I'll take a look at that. Currently doing a video on Horus versus the Emperor. I want to do a video on Eladia's person because we have all his lore, and I kind of want to do anything on Lightning Tower and stuff. So weirdly, the cards will come up in those, I think. Think of the Astronomicon as the thermostat. Biggie Dad can will it to however he wants it, no matter how far he is, and if you mess with it, he will know. Fair enough. Salmon, would you like to see anything written about the Halo stars? Yeah, I mean, Halo stars are definitely one of those things I think people always have questions on. There's huge plot points there that they can dive into if they ever want to, really, but we don't know a lot about them. I was expecting LE2 to die. I wonder what his story will be. I'm the same, Sean, man. Like, I absolutely thought LE2 was a goner. I thought he would not survive this book. I'm surprised to see him continue into the Scouring, what they'll do with him. I'm now going to have to rename my Alpha Primus video, because Alpha Primus will probably not be the oldest Space Marine in the Imperium if LE2 is still around. And exactly what he's going to do, probably something to do with the Inquisition or the High Lords of Terra. But, or maybe it's something to do with Valdor. I could see that kind of allyship. Would be interesting. Would be very, very interesting. What foul secret did Valdor learn from stabbing Abaddon? The next 10,000 years is 13 Crusades, or is it like a general vague statement? So, in fact, it's only like one paragraph. So, where is it? Hang on. Okay. So as Valdor and Abaddon are fighting, Valdor cuts his knuckles. Is it his knuckles or just his hand? And when that happens, let me... Actually, have I got... I don't think I have any art for this. Okay, so the knowledge transmitted down the haft of the spear and into his soul is not the name of a dead thing that Constantine can take power over. It is not some buried warp secret or scrap of encrypted lore that he can learn. He can't control it because it is already controlled. Everything he has learned of chaos until this moment has shown it to be an essence that lives up to its inadequate name, a chaos, a fevered, contradictory maelstrom that has no single impulse but which churns without logic or motivation and eats itself and wars with itself and whips the tears against itself in a frenzy its myriad parts as likely to annihilate each other as they are to turn their wild malice upon real space and materia. But this is complete, it is whole, it is focused, it is a chaos undivided, condensed into one atrocious force by the imposition of an incalculable willpower. Constantine is staring at the future from his time-lacking vantage point of the vengeful spirit's deconstructed heart. He is gazing down 10,000 years at a far future that is 10,000 years old, a future that gazes back at him as though it is standing right in front of him. It is chaos entire, chained and enslaved, alloyed into one lethal spear tip that will pierce the imperium of man and ensure its loss, the cutting edge of a legion in black, the unequivocal symbol of death. And then there is nothing else to learn or know. There is only war and a single name that is the worst fortune any deck of prophecy cards can ever overturn. Despoiler, he whispers. So that's, yeah, so basically, as you can tell, he's seen the next 10,000 years will lead to nothing but war. And I think that's what drives him kind of mad towards the end of the book, is that he suddenly realizes that everything is for naught, and yeah, they don't stand a chance in hell really against defeating the terrible forces that beset the Imperium, which drives him a bit nuts, which is a shame. Yeah. Sandman, do you play the 40k TTRPG? What do you think of them if you've played? I do. In fact, I do play Abaddon. You can see him there. I played Dark Angels. That's Heresy Dark Angels. 40k Dark Angels are there. That is Genestealer Cults. That's Brood Brothers, which is like Imperial Guard for Genestealer Cults. And then Tau. Sorry, I played Tau. I've never said that before. You can see the models, so I do apologise. But I know people get funny. People don't like the Tau. I actually quite like the Tau. I'm sorry. It's just who I am as a person. Don't hate me. Valdor sees what a super monster Abaddon will become. Absolutely. This is a bit awful. Abaddon hype. Very true. Eddie 2 is going after Erebus. Oh, that would be good. I mean, I'll tell you what though, like literally on par with Games Workshop writing an end games for Warhammer 40k. If Games Workshop just wrote a campaign in 40k that was around the death of Erebus, we'd all be so on board with it. Like everyone just wants to see that. Everyone wants to see Erebus just be wrecked. Basically, that's what we all want. Horus throws Ellie 2 into the seats of the four gods. Yeah. So it sort of feels like we traded one piece of silly lore with the Emperor not being able to kill his obviously evil son at the final hour, with Horus giving away his power because his son told him to. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where that's probably the bit that's like the hardest part to know about whether I like the end book, because I totally get where you're coming from there. Like he just kind of gives up his power when he doesn't have to. But on the other hand, it is kind of nice that he does it for Loken, because Loken is his most beloved son, and seeing that side of Horus that does love his sons and seeing that kind of shine through. That's where I love the Primarchs the most. I do really like Primarchs who love their sons. I think it's just like really cool to see that kind of thing. Yeah, Samus needs to do some cool stuff now, like kill Abaddon, take charge of Draknien, and thereby be the one best placed to be the next rep of Chaos and Divided. Samus must kill the Emperor. I don't know if you can have a demon be War Master, though. I don't think that would work, because you have to have someone that's like grounded in reality. But yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think you can do a demon. Primus can't be LE2 because Cool makes Primus, and LE2 is made by the Emo. LE2 was made by the Emperor and Neoth. He just says my mother was Erda, my father was Neoth. But yeah, you are right. I don't think Alpha Primus could be Erda. No, could be LE2, because yeah, as you say, we know when Alpha Primus was made. In which book is old law for burning of Prospero, and in which book is the new one? Same, but we have old lore of how the Emperor fought Horus, but only hear it on YouTube like audio. But where is it written? So 1,000 Suns is the first novel where it appears in the Heresy, but then Burning of Prospero, a lot of the time in 40k, you see events from multiple angles. So you also see stuff in a Burning of Prospero. So you can, yeah, you get it kind of twice. It sort of feels like we trade. Do you think Sanguinius' soul attaching to Horus is the chink in the armor? The Emperor kills his son because he does not feel any more needs and Emperor. If there is that, they haven't written it, but it could be cool. It just sort of feels like we traded. Oh no, sorry, I've read that thing like 3 times now. I'm just getting into this universe of 40k, thinking to myself, if the Emperor was to return to the Imperium as it is in the current timeline, he'd hate what it is and become, and people have become. So weirdly, actually, so Dan Abnett has spoken about this a little bit in an interview he's done on YouTube. I can't remember the name of the channel it's on, I'm sorry. But like if you Google Dan Abnett interview, it might come up, where he says that with a lot of that stuff, with like the Emperor becoming a god, for example, he probably would accept it because the Emperor will be whatever he has to be. So the fact that faith is a necessary component, potentially, for the Imperium survival means that he might be okay with it, weirdly. So that's how the Emperor might view things, I think, from Dan Abnett's point of view, but you don't have to agree with that. That's just his point of view, I think. Hello from Regensburg. Hello, Regensburg. Big E has to be brewing a plan, where his plans in the material world failed. Now he has to turn to the warp to get his vision done, but he doesn't mind the worship to get a power boost. I mean, I think the main thing it's going to be doing now is the Star Child storyline. The Star Child storyline, I think, is going to dominate 40k for about a decade or so. So I think that's probably what we're gonna see. If Erebus gets what's coming to him, will the Chaos Gods revive him, or just not? Or will he just not be relevant anymore? I mean, to be fair, yeah, they'd probably just revive him. But we could get a permadeath. Gilliman kills him, for example. Maybe the other Primarchs will come back. Krogs are a threat, Orcs so. Very true, very true. Do you think the Ragdan could get their own models and come back? Yeah, the Rangdan. I do think so. I mean, the end of the Rangdan lore kind of very much implies that, like, oh, there's a chance they survived, type thing. So that's always, the door is always open for the Rangdan to return, which would be pretty cool. Anti-heresy people. Ooh, here we go. You can keep crying. To be honest, it is an amazing series. If you don't enjoy it, as many other things, it's just a matter of taste and enjoyment. But don't be a pain. I mean, yeah. I mean, to be fair, I don't think people are too bad with it. I think, you know, we're all very passionate about these things. Sometimes I worry, like even the way I do it, like, oh, I don't want to nitpick a series, but at the same time, I love the series. I'm very passionate about it. So if I'm like, why did this character do this? Like, you know, why did they do this if this has also happened? Do you know what I mean? I hope that doesn't come across as nitpicking. It's just, I'm just very obsessed with the series. If that makes sense. I would love to see the Korok. Headcanon is that the beast evolved back into a Korok. I think that's the general idea, is that you basically become something similar. Yeah. It feels like Chaos and the Nids are the only urgent threats. Well, the Necrons could be. It depends what they do with the Necrons. They might be caught up in a civil war, but they could be a threat. Or one of the major threats. But right now it's the Tyranids. What do you think would happen if the Korok Trazen has stored in his museum got loose. I don't know. Perhaps he would be like a beast for the orcs, but I don't think they'll ever do that kind of. Yeah, if they ever released everything in Trajan's museum, 40k would change very rapidly. On the Forgotten and the Purge, do you think the Purge killed the Forgotten? Maybe the Ranged and Sloss messed with the Purged, and that's why they sent the Lion and the Wolf. I think that would be a cool explanation. And that's what I'd probably do, something like that. But yeah, we just don't know really with that storyline. Now that the Heresy is finished, what are your top 3 books? Oh, that's a good question. Books that I enjoyed the most. It's a bit classic, but I'm a bit like, I like the classics. Probably Master of Mankind, Saturnine. I don't know what the third would be. That's really tough. Tempted to be a bit soppy and say like Horus Rising. I do love Horus Rising. I had to read it recently. Unremembered Empire. No Fear. It's another Dan Abnett book. That book is great. I really like that one. Yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah, I think off the top of my head, I'd probably go Saturnine, Master of Mankind, and No Fear. That's probably my 3 favorites. There you go. There's probably a very big debate you could have. That would be quite a fun conversation, actually. Emperor is going to make new Primarchs, only this time he learned the lesson that was the Chaos powers are too crafty. He's going to have to go to another source. He's going to make the deal with Gork and Mork. That would be cool. Another super chat from Sari. Thank you so much. Thank you for your hard work and analysis. I mean, hey, thank you so much. But yeah, I thought this would be a bit more casual, weirdly, because I've been working on a video that I was going to do a stream on, which was going to be this. And I was like, you know what, this would work much better as a video, because when I do the streams, they're much more casual. I am trying to remember. I've got no script that I'm working from. I have like some notes, but I try not to just read off the notes. And so I'm recording everything. So I apologize if the other thing gets slipped through. I do apologize, but I do try my best. But I kind of just like doing them like this because I get to interact with you guys. People seem to like them quite a lot. I think they're more casual. Yeah. I will say as well, actually, something I mentioned last week was that I'd quite like to have people on for these more. And there are YouTubers and stuff, and as you guys have seen, I had the Amber King on. There's other YouTubers who I've messaged, etc. So that kind of thing, I definitely want to continue. But the other thing to note is that I'd quite like to have you guys on, possibly if people are interested. And last week, I probably went about it the wrong way. I was like, if you're interested, message me. I got a lot of messages, and I was like, oh, that was a terrible thing to say, because I have no idea, like, the quality of, like, people, what people can bring, for example. And ideally, I want someone who can kind of bring it up to the channel. So I thought about that for a while, and I was like, what could be quite fun would be to do, if you're interested, do not feel any pressure to do this, but if you'd like to come on the stream at some point, I guess if you could just like record like a minute or whatever, a super casual, don't feel like you have to edit anything, of you just like talking about your favorite faction or your favorite chapter or whatever, and send that to me, and then I can use that as like to see what you've got. I will say, because not only would I like you to have kind of like a great knowledge and kind of passion for 40k lore, but also I guess I kind of need you to have some sort of microphone, like even like a headphone microphone for your gaming equipment or whatever is normally good enough. But let me know. And so if that interests you, record something, put it up. I won't say you necessarily have to have a camera, but you absolutely can come on a camera if you're interested. What I will probably do is do the stream kind of like this, where I'll have a topic, go through the topic, and then at a certain point, I will invite people on. That's probably the way I would do it, because I was looking at like other people that stream, because believe it or not, some people stream about things that aren't Warhammer 40k. Surprising, I know, but and so I thought that would be interesting. So if if that interests you, feel free to send me something on Instagram or Discord or Twitter, or you can email me if you really want to. Yeah. And also thank you. Somebody emailed me this week, which is very, very nice. And he emailed me about my pronunciation of certain words. Now, the problem with the pronunciation of certain things in 40k is that how I do them is correct, but how Games Workshop does them is not necessarily how you'd think they'd be correct. So the example he gave was Reboot Guilliman, because the French would say Reboot Guilliman. I've nothing against that, right? If you're French, that's probably correct. But that is not how Reboot Guilliman is pronounced. Reboot Guilliman is pronounced Reboot Guilliman. And we know that because Games Workshop have made a video about how Reboot Guilliman should be pronounced. And they told us. So it's quite funny to me that, yeah, it was quite interesting. Horus set the power aside to mourn and grieve like a man. Yeah, that's true. I think the next video I do will probably be exactly actually on like how the Emperor beat Horus, and that idea was actually kind of sweet. Flight of the Eisenstein, great choice. No Fear, Saturn End of the Death. Yeah. Legion was great. Legion's one of those books I'm kind of mixed on, because the whole Cabal Alpha Legion storyline is very, I have a very mixed opinion on it, I think. It's tough to know because it's very odd. The Infinite and Divine is the most enjoyable book for me. I mean, I get that, Murphy. I totally do, man. Like, it's a great book. It's been so popular. It's become like one of the most go-to recommended books for people like starting 40k on like the GW websites. They always recommend it. So it's, yeah, very popular. Robert Rath, he then got given like, he then got given The Fall of Cadia. So they were clearly very aware that it did very well. My top 3 books would be Fear to Tread. Any book that has Erebus getting skinned is good by my count. Devastation of Baal and Descent of Angels. Nice. You like Blood Angels and Dark Angels? Fair enough. Devastation of Baal is very, very good. I love Devastation of Baal. That I don't know if you can jump right into, but I suspect it wouldn't be that hard to read quite early on into your 40k understanding. If you know what Space Marines are, you'll make. If you know about Guilliman and stuff, you can make it work. Ultra Primaris Marines. Thank you. I love when you're casual, but damn, I love the voices you do. You make 40k come to life. You know what? I've been trying to get better at it. I've been trying to get better at the reading of the lore, and I really enjoy it. So this next video I'm releasing, I think it's probably my best work. Like, I was really happy. Like, the scenes I've done, like the Elanius Horus scene, I've done when Horus meets the Emperor already, and I've done the death scene as well. And I really enjoyed doing this. They were a lot of fun. I tried to make Elanius, because I was very welled up when I read Elanius versus when Elanius dies, and I would love to see more. Me, Emma King, and Lewiton should all sit down for a coffee. That would be cool. Lewiton would be tough. Lewiton's very busy, so I don't know if he does a lot of collabs. That's the one I'm for. But I can try. I'll drop him a message. I will do something with Voldemort at some point, because I've met Voldemort. He was very, very nice, and he has said we need to do something. So I will message him. And yeah, we can come on just for a chat about 40k, which would be pretty cool. I think a lot of people will be up for it. Crossover with Valrak would be fun. That would be a lot of fun. What would I talk to Valrak about though? That's the question. Would be cool to see people chatting. Yes. A 2-person duo is a great idea, kind of like Poor Hammer or Dungeon Dudes. Yes, I think you're probably right. I think it would be interesting to have a couple of people on. Bricky, yeah, Bricky would be good. I was sad to see Dice Check shutting down, but I think things are just kind of they got lots on. Stream about things that aren't 40k. That's heresy. I know, awful, isn't it? Really. My problem is my time zone, all them Brits over there. I mean, I guess a good question. So, like, if you are American, I was going to say American based, but that's not right. American is just the word. If you are American and you want to come on, I can absolutely change the time of these. That's fine. You are, 7, 8 hours. I guess, you have a very big country. I always forget this. So your East and West Coast are very different, aren't they? So you are behind us. So yeah, I could stream later. Does that make sense? Yes. Yeah. But yeah, I can work around you. That's not a problem. How do I find your Discord? The Discord will be on the channel. Sorry, if you go onto the channel page, there should be access. There should be a list of links, and you can find it on there. Robert Goldman. Yes, that's true. His name is always mispronounced. I think Subject 11 is a Primarch with perpetual powers and is kept in a cell to prevent him from respawning. Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. Games Workshop commits pronunciation crimes regularly. That's true. I'm new to Warhammer 40. Oh. I'm new to Warhammer 40k, and I would like to start reading books about it. What are the easiest to read besides the Infinite and Divine? The easiest to read is I would probably go with like Gaunt's Ghosts or Caiaphas Cain as the easiest to read. They are very pleasant reads. I've talked about Gaunt's Ghost 1 quite a bit on the channel actually, and that's a very kind of approachable book. I think Eisenhorn is actually quite hard. If you're very new to 40k, it covers a lot of topics. But if you're when I say, when you say you're new to 40k, if what you mean is you've watched a bunch of 40k lore videos, then Eisenhorn will be fine. Like if you can understand this stream, you're probably fine to do Eisenhorn. If there's lots of the stream you're like, I've no idea what he's talking about with this Inquisition and Emperor and all this kind of stuff, then I absolutely would say hold off on that one. But yeah, Gaunt's Ghost, Caiaphas Cain. If you're aware of what the Horus Heresy is and who Conrad Kurz is, the Night Lords trilogy is very, very good. Horus Rising is actually a very easy book to read, but it's just intimidating. Horus Rising, the problem with Horus Rising is it's the start of a 64-book series, so it's so intimidating to start. But if you pass that intimidation, and because you can just read the first 3, it's actually a really good book. It's a great place to start. It's not a very, I would say Horus Rising is far less complex than Eisenhorn as a novel. I think Eisenhorn is far more complex. Sandman of Terra is Alfarius. Yeah, true. Could it be interesting to have ChatGPT just for 40k lore questions? Yeah, I've asked it stuff before. I asked it I asked it to help me write a script once, and it is it's quite funny because you see that thing about how AI works. So I asked it, I think it was about typhus, and it gave me these answers that were almost kind of right, but not quite. So it was typhus grew up on the plague planet or something like that, and I was like, oh, nearly right, but not quite. So it's trying to guess the answer. It doesn't actually know what the answer is. I didn't like that the reserve fleet was just a footnote after being hidden for 3 to 4 books waiting for their moment. I guess I missed a last space flight. That's true. Yeah. I do get what you're saying there. I thought that we'd kind of see more. I did like the line about the loyalists being absolutely ruthless and how they hunt down the traitors. So that was pretty cool. But I think there was a lot of stuff that would have been cooler to see after the Emperor fell. What do you think of Loken's death? Yeah, as I said before, it's kind of I wish he had died fighting against Horus, but I get why he did it this way, and it's kind of the point is that you don't like it, I guess, and it's brutal and savage. It's the nature of spawning demons. But yeah. True, I've heard several authors pronounce canon material differently. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And the audiobooks are also all over the place. I think Jagati is said, then Games Workshop officially say Jagatai. So it changes all the time. I find the Infinite and Divine captures more fun, wacky old lore. Yeah, definitely. I prefer your more laid back explanations and discussions. Good. This sounds great. Do some voice acting training to get better if you want. Yeah, it's a good shout, mate. Like, I actually did think about doing like some sort of like acting lesson or something like that, maybe, and try to push the boat out. But it's because weirdly, I think the thing I've had to learn is to not overthink it so much and kind of like lean into it and enjoy it, I guess, as they say. Is Alpha Primus a vessel for the Emperor? Maybe not a long-term fix, but would allow the Emperor to return temporarily. Alpha Primus would have to die, though, I think. I mean, that could be a cool fate for Alpha Primus to be, you know, temporarily inhabited with the Emperor's soul. That kind of thing could be cool. So I don't know. It's Guy Haley's baby, so I don't know if it's going to work into like the overall storyline, but maybe. Sandman, if you could go back and retcon one specific piece of lore and completely change it to your liking, what do you think you would choose? As a big Dark Angels fan, my gut reaction is to say I would change the death of Nemiel, and I would justify the death of Nemiel instead of just the lion seemingly being unable to take any pushback from his sons. This was a terrible way to do it. I've actually read the commentary on that from the authors, and they were like, we wanted it to be that the lion is like this animal, and that was revealed. And I was like, he just seems petty and childish in that scene. Outside of that, yeah, I would probably have Lehman Russ's storyline be built into the Siege of Terra in a larger way. That would have been pretty interesting. I would say something about Corvus Corax, but I suspect we'll get more on Corvus in the future, about him kind of doing like you know, attacks on the traitors from behind and that kind of thing. And so yeah, those hit and run tactics, which would be pretty cool. The Remembrancer, I did message the Remembrancer actually. He was busy at the time, but we can, yeah, definitely let's do something in the future. My top 3 books of the Heresy may not be the most mentioned ones, but Horus Rising, Fulgrim, and The Buried Dagger. The Buried Dagger is actually very good as well. That's a good shout. Fulgrim is Fulgrim, outside of a couple of very extreme scenes, is a very good book as well. I think it's the book Fulgrim is so interesting because you can tell that it's come from a time in the Heresy where they didn't expect the Heresy to go on for as long as it did, because obviously it rushes through a lot of stuff with Fulgrim and Ferrus. And obviously nowadays, I think if they'd rewritten that, they'd have extended that out probably over like multiple books, so we get a good amount of Ferrus Manus before he dies. But Ferrus, you know, is in and dead in a book, which is savage. I think it's important to keep the lore obscure to new players because it's the very reason why to go down the rabbit hole. It reinforces the faith in the Emperor. Yeah, that's true. Lots of love for Varak and Voldemort. You can make a fun Imperial fist with Varak. Cool. Erebus needs a long and nasty death. Yes, that would be... Erebus's death would be beloved by the community. Something... That's the thing. I might just reread Fear to Tread. Just the final part. Just because it's... just need it. Just need him being flayed by Horus again. How can you guys talk about best books and not mention Hell's Reach? Sorry, I thought we were just talking about Heresy books, though. Sorry, I didn't know we were talking about 40k books, including 40k books. It's tough one. Yeah, I don't actually know what else is the book, because that's the thing. It's tough not to give really obvious answers, but a lot of the obvious answers are obvious because they are so beloved, because they're so well written. But I'm tempted to try and be like indie and say something very, very obscure. But hey ho. East Coast is 5 hours behind. West Coast is 8 hours behind. There we go. Okay, cool. There is no lieutenant. It's wrong spelling. I mean, you can tell Games Workshop that, but it's their story. From Australia, your stream is always 7 to 8 a.m. for me when I'm at work. That's interesting. I didn't know that, but I guess that's how maths works. So yeah, there we go. Eisenhorn quadrilogy is easiest to read. Do you think that? So Eisenhorn wasn't the first thing I read, but I have given it to people who are brand new to 40k, and all of them have struggled with it. That's why I say that. And then I think about it, and I was like, because I gave it because it was, a book that I loved. But then I thought about it, and I was actually, it has got a lot to it. Like those first few chapters, you cover like the Inquisition, the Heresy, the Emperor, blanks, like this messed up reality of the Imperium. There's a lot going on. With Horus Rising, for example, it's just like, these are Space Marines. These are the Space Marines' dads. Like it's interesting. I started with Lion, Son of the Forest, and I really liked it, and I think it was a great start for me. I fell in love with the whole setting during it. You know what? That's a good shout. You totally could start with Lion, Son of the Forest, actually, which is probably the point. Like same with Gene Father. Like I think Gene Father was very carefully written so that, because Gene Father covers a lot of plot points, but it's written to be very approachable, because I think the point of that book is to set up various important plot points for the future. So yeah, there we go. Sandman, couldn't LLJ use the T'Challa engine, nice, to teleport onto the Vengeful Spirit in theory? Well, it's the T'Challa engine, or T'Challa engine, I don't know, I never know how to say it properly, or I just can't say it properly, I don't think it's a precise form of teleportation like that. So, but maybe, to be fair, it's a very good question. It's a really good question, Brian. Because, sorry, so if you're not familiar to what Brian's asking here, the T'Challa engine is a old one's kind of warp drive. It's very important to the Dark Angel storyline and has come kind of into the wider 40k storyline now. Anyway, long story short, the Lion finds it in the Heresy. He has to beat Typhus to get it. He gets it. He plugs it into the Invincible Reason, his flagship. And when he does so, this like very powerful device, it speaks through a child, but it can like seemingly allow them to make very long and precise warp jumps. Now, the problem that they have is that the Ruin Storm is currently in existence. And so even though the Lion has got this very powerful drive in his ship, he can't jump through the Ruin Storm because it's still not able to get past that barrier. However, after they destroy Davin, they find Horus has blockaded the Loyalists off. So Horus knew they would come through this break at Davin somehow. And so the Ultramarines run interference, so the Blood Angels can get to Terra, and the Dark Angels go and destroy the traitor homeworlds, which has a purpose. But the question is, why didn't the Lion just kind of go through this gap that the destruction of Davin created, go through the Ruin Storm, and then try and hop to Terra? Because surely that would have worked. So I don't know, Brian. I've never thought about that before. Now you've made me think about it, and I don't know. Maybe there is something somewhere that explains it, but I can't think of anything. Dark Imperium and Gilliman storyline. Dark Imperium you could start reading. Dark Imperium is pretty good. I had ChatGPT try and make a Fallout 40k faction. It came up pretty good. Interesting. What makes you think there will be a proper 40k endgame? Wouldn't it be pretty stupid for GW to jeopardize their franchise's success if it's popular the way it is? So it's a really good question. So the reason I think we will one day get a 40k endgame is precisely because of that kind of success that they seek. So the popularity of 40k has been rising and rising, and that cannot be sustained forever, and that will eventually start to drop. When that drops, Games Workshop will be looking for an immediate cash injection, or at least their investors, shareholders will do. So when that happens, they'll be looking for easy ways to earn money, and the easiest way to earn money for Games Workshop is to have the 40k storyline make a big jump, return Primarchs, etc. Once they've gone through all of these things, eventually we'll get to the point of going, well, we have to do something, let's do a 40k endgame. And so, like, we're talking decades, but at a certain point, they will have to look at this kind of thing. That makes sense. I started with Gilliman's Revival, and now I am up to speed with the latest lore. Need to dig into the Horus Heresy soon. Nice. I use your videos for sleeping and relaxing the last 2 weeks. Thanks, greetings from Germany. Ah, cool, good to know, good to know. I'm actually working on a couple of like very long videos that I think could be useful for that, because I know people like that kind of thing. It's not a thing that I've done, but it's a thing I've had like requested a little bit, so I would be interested to see how I do with that kind of stuff. Hopefully the Scouring books will be as good as the Heresy, expecting the Loyalists to be very ruthless, maybe even show the Primarch's disappearance a bit. Interesting. What do you think happened to the lost Primarchs? So yeah, I think that I did, we talked about this a bit with the. I should be back now. Sorry, I think I might have dropped out there for a minute. So I believe that the Rangdan were controlled by the Sloth, and I think the Rangdan were probably a human people. I think that's probably what they were. They were a human civilization. They were controlled by the Sloth, who then was, and they also controlled one of the Primarchs. I think one of the Primarchs was the Primarch of like the Rangdan people or something like that, and so they had to be destroyed by the Loyalists. That's probably by like the. But I think even Lehman Russ and Lionel Johnson probably can't remember exactly what happened, because the Emperor would have deleted those memories from their minds. That's why something like that. That wasn't very well explained. I did it better in the video. Do you think Big E being on the Golden Throne is more of a plot device, thereby allowing for things to go catastrophically wrong over the past 10k years? I don't know. I mean, it is a plot device. It's a very, very cool plot device. I don't know exactly what you mean by that, to us, mate. But I guess a lot of the writers do see it as being something that, the 40k is doomed, like the Imperium is doomed. But it's tough to know exactly whether that's the case. In the table is set, does the Emperor really not care, or is he trolling Malcador? I think he does care. Malcador believes the Emperor does care, so I think he does. Would be pretty metal to have the Emperor walk around as an undead corpse. That would be pretty interesting. What video games are you playing, or what is your top 3? So to be honest, video games, I'm not. I'm not a gamer like that. So I love Skyrim. I actually do love Warhammer Total War 3, and like playing on that massive map is awesome. But yeah. Then what else have I been playing? I don't know. I've been playing much recently, to be honest. It was great. Of Mankind, Betrayer, and Saturnine. Very true. But I'd also include First Heretic and Imperium Secundus. You mean Unremembered Empire? That's fair. Yeah. Sorry, did I just cut out? Yeah, cool. Sorry, guys. I think I'm cutting out. I think my internet is being weird. So I think I'm going to call it there. I'm sorry, guys, but it looks like my internet has had enough of this stream. So before this goes absolutely haywire, I think I'm probably going to drop. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me on this stream. Yeah, so I guess just to like wrap up, I personally actually really liked this final book. I think that it is always going to be tough to satisfy everybody. I think that Dan Abnett did a pretty good job.